you so much. Thank you, Daniel, for the invitation. I'll turn on my camera. This is not a workshop. This is not an explanation of many specification or so on. It's only our approach we have at Please-open.it. So let me introduce myself. I'm Mathieu Passenaud. I come from France, in the south of France. So if you notice an accent or incorrect vocabulary, I apologize. And the French employment agency Nightmare, I found some bad patterns on their authentication, on their OAuth authentication. And I will explain something about this, but it's all about web analytics. When you use web analytics on a web application, sometimes there's some tokens are sent to these web analytics. So we found this pattern, and there's big complications around this. You can follow me on Twitter, and on my personal blog post, I write down some articles every month in English, so feel free to follow me. I'm the CEO of Please-open.it. We provide keycloak as a service. You can subscribe for a free offer. You can have a ring, and for testing purpose or demo, it can be very, very useful. And we have some production clients, of course. And we made some tooling that you can use for your own business. Our last tool we published is the OpenID client with only a bash script. And you can make every operation on OAuth server using bash with only curl and GQ, such as client credentials or authorization code, and so on. It's very useful only for education purpose, and you can use it for testing and repeating some tests. And we also provide a great extension for Chrome that analyzes the authentication, the authentication process, and if the token are not are correctly used or not. With this extension, we saw that Facebook recommends sending tokens directly in URL. So we found very, very bad practice on some big websites or providers. It's not good to see something in this extension. Let's talk about login. Login, as we saw for years and years and years from the origin when we have multi-user systems. We use login and passwords from the beginning of the computers when we had multi-user systems. We use login and passwords. And today, login and password are the common way to authenticate, but something is changing now. We can have second step, or with using this Google interface, you can have passwordless authentication. Just bring your smartphone, and when you log in to your Google account, you have a notification, and you just have to answer that it's you trying to make a new connection, and you don't have any password. It's really interesting, and it's another step for passwordless authentication. I'll talk about later. Recently, they published what they call Google One-Tap Login. It's a JS library for progressive web apps. Using this, you don't have to authenticate using your web browser. It can get local accounts from your smartphone. When you log in with Google, Facebook, or Twitter, they keep connection using accounts parameters in the smartphone. So you can use this connection and those local accounts that you're already authenticated on. It's really interesting for user experience. Recently, we had webauthn, and webauthn is fully supported on keycloak. It's really interesting. It's an authentication using private keys. and it's fully compatible with the Windows Hello, for example. So you don't have to bring your USB key. It can be your fingerprint or facial recognition or your PIN code that you use to unlock your computer. So it's another step for passwordless authentication, and it's a good step for user experience. And lastly, Google published a native program for Windows that allows you to connect to your Windows computer with your Google account. It's only for professional, but it works, and it's another step of single sign-on the web and not on the web. You can unlock your computer using an OAuth2 account. And we made some publication with some modules on Linux that allows you to connect with SSO account. We made some examples with keycloak, and most recently we made a module for OpenVPN to connect to an OpenVPN using OAuth2 account. So it's more than the web. I wrote a big blog post a year ago about single sign-on all over the web. It's why you should or must use those signing with buttons as a user and as a developer. There's pros, there's cons, but you have to use those buttons to get the best security and sometimes passwordless authentication. So now all over the web we have passwordless authentication mostly everywhere available. We have single sign-on, and single sign-on is a big part of authentication on the web. You have some application and very common application that only uses single sign-on. You cannot have a Tinder account without Facebook, for example. And smartphones change the game. When you own a smartphone, we consider that it's your smartphone and you never give your smartphone to someone else. Authentication is not only with the secret, it's something that you know, a password, for example, or give something that you own, you have. Your fingerprint, you don't choose your fingerprint, or you can use your smartphone with a correct PIN code or fingerprint. And we have sensors of our smartphone or our PCs with the fingerprint or facial recognition since years. We can throw away our kind of notebooks we have with username and password I saw everywhere. We made a little experiment for one of our clients. We made an authentication using those kind of keys of keyboard. We usually see that for banking account in Europe. And with those numbers, you have to click on, and it's a really, really bad user experience. But in mind, it's good security. And we made the same app only with one-touch signing using Android SDK with a fingerprint. And the security is almost the same between those two apps, but somebody will choose the second app only for user experience. Security is not always a mathematical result. If you put the user in the equation, the user will always down your security. So security and user experience are growing fast all over the web, and security and user experience are related. I'll show you an example I saw a month ago. This is from the French TV, and we saw on top of the screen login and a password, write it down. We saw this everywhere. So you can have big password, long passwords, and so many things about security. If the user makes this, you don't have any security. So keep in mind that you have a security that you can compute, and you have to take care about the user. Now, for physical security, we can have the same approach. So why physical security matters? When you have a company, have a building, keep the security of the building is the same as keeping the security for the software. If someone can enter the building and grab any computer and go out with this computer, it's a security issue. It's a security issue for software, but it's a hardware issue. For many years, we have this. We have keys for cars or doors. Those keys, the first keys, are simple keys, and those keys are the second generation. They have a little chip in with another key. So when you put the key right in your car, there's two verification, mechanical verification here and an electronic verification with a transponder. And here are some kind of passwords or keys. And the most advanced we can have is a fingerprint sensors, but we have some problems with the law that keeping fingerprints is not easy to do, and it's not allowed everywhere. What we can see from this example is that every key can be duplicated easily. Those keys are not quite easy to duplicate. Those are easy to duplicate. This one is not easy, but you can duplicate it. And we had an example. 2 years ago, the American Customs have some pass to open luggage, and they published those keys on social media. And a French guy just took the photo and makes some 3D models, and now you can download and print all the TSA pass and use it on every luggage that have those keys available. So we don't improve security with the keys. And did we improve the user experience? I talk a lot about user experience and how much user experience is important in security. I don't think so. When you saw those kind of keys, we cannot talk about real security. If you lose one of these, you lose all. And I saw this a week ago. Thanks Nico for the picture. It's not a good user experience. It depends from the technology. It depends from the key you have, and you have to put the key in front of the right reader or so on. No, it's not good. If we take a definition from the universal knowledge on the web called Wikipedia, OAuth is an open standard for access delegation commonly used as a way for internet users to grant websites or applications access to their information on other websites, but without giving them passwords. It's really interesting to say that passwords are not transmitted. But why? Why everyone say OAuth is only for websites or applications? Can we use OAuth for physical access for those? Of course we can. Tesla made it. I saw for Model S and Model X, for Model 3, I don't really know. You can open the car with your smartphone. How it works? It's easy and really simple. The owner API Tesla, so really easy to understand. There's a command called door unlock, and you call it with your beer token, your access token from the Tesla OAuth, and it opens the car. So how it works? The smartphone sends the request to the Tesla servers, and Tesla servers are connected to the car using a VPN. Each Tesla Model S or Model X has a VPN open between the car and the Tesla servers. That's why you can see some posts about people that cannot open their car when they are in the middle of the desert. You have to bring the car key, and your smartphone cannot open the car because the connection is not established between the Tesla servers and the car. This approach is for us too complicated. So let's back to the common approach of OAuth. It's really easy to understand. We have a user with his web browser. We make a OAuth request to the OAuth server. We get a token with an authorization code and so on. And you send the token to an API gateway or directly to your backend with a header in a HTTP request. The request comes to the backend. The backend verifies the token with the token introspect. We have the answer, we check the roles and so many parameters we want to check, and we have a response. That's a very simple schema of OAuth. What we can do with doors? Just replace the web browser with the mobile phone of the user. We authenticate with to the OAuth server, and we will find a method to transmit the token from the smartphone to the door. The door just acts the backend if the user has the rights to open, and with the token introspect, check the role, check all the rules we defined. We just return a response if the door can be opened or not. We add this. For token transmission, we use a QR code. We encode the token in a QR code and just flash this code in front of the door. It's really easy and it's really fast. We also made a Bluetooth version. It's quite, it's not so simple to deploy, and it's not as fast as the QR code can be. The door has a really simple module, connected module. We called our backend, we call it the access. And the access verifies from our keycloak if the user has the roles we need. We check some other parameters, and just with a response, an HTTP code, OK or unauthorized, the door is open or not. Our keycloak is connected to many sources of identities, such as Google Suite, Office, Outlook. We have also LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, GitLab, and so on. We can add all over the OAuth provider you need. So we can reduce a lot the onboarding and the offboarding process using this. I checked a developer onboarding checklist just from the process.st website. And we have 5 points that are related to a single sign-on. Create an email address, add to chat system, add to project management system, add to code repos. If a company has a Google Suite, for example, those 4 points are made in just one click. With our system, we add giving building access on the same click. You create an account for the user. If the door is correctly parametered, you have the correct parameters, sorry, they have the access directly. We have a mobile web app. It's a progressive web app, really simple. You can make your own. It's a standard OAuth flow. You use an authorization code with every library you want. And we make a token exchange operation on our server. So you got a Google token, you exchange it from our server to get a token dedicated only for door opening. It has a very limited lifetime, just 1 minute. If you stole a token from someone, you have just 1 minute to open another door. And just like an authorization code, it's only for a single use. We also make token exchange because we want a very small token to encode them in QR code. We can also send it using Bluetooth. For the door, we have embedded modules, which are really simple. It's just a standard QR code reader. You can use also a digital camera. We have the compute module. We chose a Raspberry Pi because it's the most common embedded module you can find for very low price. This module only makes a GET request with the token read on the QR code, and with the response only open the door or not. We also made another application called the Validator. It's a web app which makes the same thing. It uses the computer camera, and you'll see if the user has access or not. So our embedded code is just this. We make a GET request using curl and check only the response. If the response is OK, we open the door or not. Really simple. We can make it with an Arduino or with any embedded device you can find. That the only thing we have to is network connection using Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or it can also runs with the IoT system such as LoRa network. And our server is it's a SaaS, an application, and you define some rules based on user properties. That's why we define a rule. Only user from the Google Suite organization, Please-open.it, can open the door. So if you add a new user in your organization, this user has the right to open. If you remove someone, this man or this girl cannot log in, so it cannot open the door. Really simple. And over those rules, we can define some time-based rules, and we have some many plugins. You can connect it to a calendar, to an Airbnb account. So we integrate the login with Airbnb, and we check if the user has a reservation on the apartment, and we open the door or not. It's really easy to use, and this is our approach of what we can do with OAuth, just right out the box, with only a few, very few adjustments to send the token from the smartphone to the door, and apply it to physical access with the same rules and with the same level of security you can have on any SSO account you have. We define some SSO for doors. We are the first one to make this. It's a one-time key. It's not really a key. You arrive in front of the door already authenticated, and you just prove that you are the person. And the most important part that is you inherit your provider authentication and security principles. So if your SSO needs a double check, you have this double check for your door and your physical access control. And it's less maintenance. You only have a one-time configuration, then it makes its life by its own. This is how it looks like. We just authenticate, read the code, and the door opens in less seconds. Thank you for watching. I mean, it was a very short presentation. I'm open for questions, and you can test it directly on theaccess.io. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks a lot. Interesting application for OAuth. So we have some time for questions, and we actually have a question by Aaron in the chat.
Yeah, it's yes, it's reliant on an internet connection. We cannot make authentication with OAuth without an internet connection. So now we can have a double internet connection using 4G network and an Ethernet or Wi-Fi connection. It's not a problem to have an internet connection in front of the door. Is there any other questions?
Okay, I guess you'll be around and in the Slack. Are there other questions?
Can we use biometrics instead of QR? No, you can use biometric to get a QR code. If you use biometric, it's another way to authenticate. And biometric with the fingerprint or facial recognition is more secure than you can do with a standard OAuth account. Our website is theaccess.io.
Could you post that to the chat and maybe also to Slack?
Mathieu says one could check the signature of a GWT offline, but OAuth is not based on GWT. And in our case, we do not use GWT tokens for technical reasons. We cannot encode an entire GWT in a QR code. The QR code is too big and it's not good for recognition using our device. So we only use unique IDs. What lessons learned from production implementation? We implement for two big companies, and those implementation is in parallel of a previous system using badges, and they disassembled the badges. They only use now OAuth for doors, just in case of management. It's much easier to manage. They only have one source of truth. It's their Google Suite. We often deploy on a Google Suite. And if an account exists in the Google Suite, it can open the door. If an account is disabled, it cannot open the door. It's really important to see this tricky part. For other implementations, you have one directory for software and one directory for doors.